How's the royal family? I pray that everyone is doing well. Well, my royal family, I am back. I am fine. The last video that I did was about this Becky. And what I'm going to present to the royal family on this journey is something that I have been repeating for a number of years. And I've been saying in the enemy's world, they have became full circle. What do I mean by that? They can't elevate no higher. That's not my talking point. That comes from Lisa Cabrera. She may not have used those words, but I'm putting my twist on it. Okay. So, let's not lose sight, because this is very important. We are in the retrograde phase. I don't care if it's staging. I don't care if it's hitting direct or descending. The magnetic forces from that planet will be felt and respected. Well, we are in some different dynamics. Many know and some don't. In the month of February, we're going to have 7 planets in conjunction with the sun. And Mercury is all up in it. I know it's Jupiter, Saturn, I can't remember them all. I talk about planet Mercury often. I'm going to have to continue to study these other planets, or we can study them together. I thank you, Video 99, for the information that you send me, because I know you just love stuff like this. So, Becky is forcing her man's hand, and she is embarrassing him on the world stage. Many of us often talk about white supremacy. When is white supremacy going to end? Well, I'll get back to that later. So, we see the first teacher of is in panic mode. She's emboldened. She's trying to outdo Trump. She want to do more than Trump. Remember I was talking to y'all about our throne? And she feels entitled to that throne? And in her psyche, she already see Kamala on that throne. Now, anybody new to the true royal family or true royal? I don't support none of them candidates. I don't support none of the parties at all. Some people is do, so you have to let them, I have to do what I got to do, my royal family. So, we've been watching a lot of dynamics go on. And them planets being lined up the way they are, some people are going to feel it. Some people, this stuff don't even affect. But I mean, every day we seeing hyperia. I mean, since Trump stepped in office, it don't even matter if he stepped out. His demonic energy is felt. And his woman have no problem being grimy and greasy. She about that life. You're forcing your man's hand. Your man really don't like you. I got a neighbor next door, a white guy. He's a professor. And his wife told me that his mother dogged the hell out of him. And I was in their house one time and I seen on a picture of this white guy. He got to be somewhere in his 60s. He looked like he was maybe 1 year old. And when I seen that picture, he literally looked frightened. And I was thinking, damn, what did his mama do to him? To look a child to look like that, just crying through the picture. So, again, Becky, you are forcing your man's hand. He is going to have to deal with you on the world stage. And he's going to deal with you. He's going to give you a very clear understanding. You have bullied him enough. He has coddled you enough. Let's not lose sight. The number one death during slavery, white women stomping our royals' babies to death. You can go look that up, my royal family. Now they hanging us in the trees. But you mean more of our babies died opposed to our men mainly being on them trees? You're forcing your man's hand, Becky. I purposely, my royal family, did not put up a video. I wanted to watch this thing play out. Well, she's ousted. And then they threw Liz Cheney in there. Liz Cheney, nothing gonna happen to her. Nothing ain't gonna happen to her. They talking about she survived it. She didn't do nothing wrong. She just doing her damn job. Now don't get it twisted, my royal family. If you hear me speaking in favor of the enemy, I have absolutely no love at all for the enemy. I'm not the one. So as we continue to go on this journey, I have a series of videos. Let's see what's going on.
House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy about to meet with Congresswoman and QAnon supporter Marjorie Taylor Greene. A meeting that is expected to decide not only Greene's fate, but also could determine the future of the Republican Party in the United States. Because tonight the Republican Party is totally at odds over whether it will embrace QAnon conspiracy theories as the core of the party. And rhetoric like this from Marjorie Taylor Greene in 2019 that's just coming to light. Will they embrace this, what's seen in this video, uncovered by Twitter user Zedster?
If we have a sea of people, if we shut down the streets, if we shut down everything, if we flood the Capitol building, flood all the government buildings, go inside. These are public buildings. We own them. We own these buildings. Do you understand that? We own the buildings and we pay all the people that work in the buildings.
Flood the Capitol, flood the government buildings. We own the buildings. Sounds now so sinister, right? 2019, that was said, and now here we are. We see what that can bring. Tonight's meeting should be a no-brainer for McCarthy. Greene, of course, has advocated violence against politicians, claimed school shootings were planned just to hurt gun rights, talked about space lasers causing wildfires, and that's not all.
The so-called plane that crashed into the Pentagon. It's odd, there's never any evidence shown for a plane in the Pentagon. There is an Islamic invasion into our government offices right now. Kennedy getting killed in the plane crash. That's another one of those Clinton murders, right?
It should be pretty easy for McCarthy to say this stuff does not belong anywhere. Never mind in the Republican Party. It certainly does not deserve a plum assignment on the Education Committee, which he had just given Congresswoman Taylor Greene. But for McCarthy and almost every Republican in the House, their reaction to Greene has been pretty muted or, frankly, flat out non-existent. Senate Republicans, on the other hand, have been much more vocal. Mitt Romney today saying, quote, "Our Big Tent is not large enough to both accommodate conservatives and kooks." Mitch McConnell, quote, "Loony lies and conspiracy theories are cancer for the Republican Party in our country." Senator Cassidy said he agreed wholeheartedly with McConnell. Senator Ernst said, quote, "I don't want her as the face of our party." Greene then came out and responded to McConnell today. Statement saying, quote, "The real cancer for the Republican Party is weak Republicans who only know how to lose gracefully. This is why we are losing our country." That was her tweet. Now, Trump's refusal to lose gracefully is what led to the insurrection that ended with 5 people dead, including a Capitol Police officer who tonight will lie in honor in the very building he died protecting. Greene's comment that gracefully conceding is a cancer really shook me, because this is what we all try to raise our children to do. Give it your best, leave it all on the table, and then if you lose, be graceful in defeat and stand up and try again. Gracefully conceding is what makes people great. It is actually also what makes American politics so great. It's why we have strong institutions. It's why our power transitions are peaceful. In fact, no presidential candidate in modern U.S. history has refused to concede except Donald Trump. And it's Donald Trump's support for Green that is behind so many Republicans' silence tonight.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, right here from Northwest Georgia. Oh, boy, I don't want to mess with her. No, she's great. This one, I never, ever want to have her as my enemy. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Where is she? She is so unbelievable. Also joining us tonight are Georgia representatives. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I love Marjorie.
So we know why the House GOP sits largely silent on Green. It isn't just because she's a Republican. It is because she is a Trump Republican. Because the House GOP at this hour actually has absolutely no trouble calling out one of its own. They're meeting tomorrow to discuss Congresswoman Liz Cheney's future. Cheney, third-ranking Republican, they have no problem slamming her all the time because she stood up to Trump's big lie about election fraud and then voted to hold him accountable for the Capitol riot. And so this is how her fellow Republicans have absolutely no problem publicly talking about her.
How can you even call yourself a representative when you don't represent the will of the people?
I don't think she should be the chair of the Republican conference anymore. The reality is she's not representing the conference. She's not representing the Republican ideals.
She's not representing the Trump Republican ideals. Not a whole lot of outrage over Marjorie Taylor Greene in the House. Plenty over Liz Cheney. And it should come as no surprise because the apples on this do not fall far from the Trump tree.
We got to get rid of the weak Congress people, the ones that aren't any good, the Liz Cheneys of the world.
All right, my royal family. Let me freeze that. I don't want nothing to pop up here.
Barbara, if I could begin.
Okay, got that frozen and put on mute. So, let's go over here. So, don't be thrown off the dates. Tomorrow is Thursday. They are going to vote her out. I wouldn't even be surprised if they even doing it tonight because there's a lot of breaking news on CNN as I speak. I choose not to show Liz Cheney. I knew that they was not going to do anything to her because of the clout that her father has in D.C. Now, they can bitch, piss, and moan all day, but Liz Cheney has backup. This one don't have no backup. And Trump has encouraged her to be even more foolish. Now, where she lose sight is Trump don't like women. He like them just enough to meet his needs. And I've been saying from day one when they said, make America great again, it's a lot in that. And in that, you know, we already know the philosophy when it comes down to the royal family. But what does that mean when you say make America great again? What does that mean when it comes to his woman? Now, she said a lot of foolish things, but it's some things that she said, have said, and continue to say is core truth. But she ain't on code because she so flippant at the mouth, she can end up ruining the career of one of her white male counterparts. All right? But they got her gassed up and she don't give a fuck and she gonna say whatever in this war. She don't fully realize they are the tail now. All of this charade and all these things that you see, my royal family, they just playing itself out. But let's not lose sight. She want that throne by hook or crook. Like I said, our Father's energy is moving through folks. And some people don't even understand what they're doing. But one thing that Esau understand in their deep subconscious, let's not forget that calcified pineal gland. But anyway, they got a little inkling of something drastic is going to happen. And you see more and more who continues to rear up her ugly head. And then the garbage that comes up out of her. But that's her truth. All right? She's being true to her nature. And it's on full display. Now, she could get away with that if she was fruitful and multiplying. She's barren. She has absolutely no value in her community. She's gun-ho. Now, one and came up dead, running to that Capitol. One got stampeded to death at that Capitol, you know. And we're going to continue to see more of this. Their energy has not died down. But again, Becky, you're forcing your man's hand. He going to have to deal with your ass on the world stage. And it's going to be nasty. There's sales waiting for you. You will be, as I speak, the first as we continue on.
Whether to strip the Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of her committee assignments because of her past support for wild, reckless, and dangerous conspiracy theories, including QAnon. Today, Democrats on the House Rules Committee gave the go-ahead for the vote and said they must act because Republicans are not taking any action.
Congresswoman Greene has also promoted truly appalling things, from implying that 9/11 is a hoax, saying school shootings were false flag operations, and spreading anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, including one about a Jewish space laser being the cause of wildfires in California. If this isn't the bottom line, I don't know where the hell the bottom line is.
The House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy released a statement today condemning Greene's past comments, but he says the resolution to remove her from committees is a distraction for the Congress. Strikingly, the House GOP is also deciding whether they'll remove the Congresswoman Liz Cheney from her leadership role as the number 3 Republican in all the House after she voted to impeach the former president. A source tells NBC News that Representative Cheney refused to apologize for impeaching the former president during a reportedly raucous, closed-door GOP meeting that's ongoing now. NBC's Sahil Kapoor now. Sahil, Republicans are going to have to be on the record tomorrow with this vote.
They are, Shep, and it looks like they are eyeing a procedural reason to vote against stripping Marjorie Taylor Greene from her committee assignments, essentially arguing that longstanding principle in the House is for the minority party to be able to decide who takes those seats, not the majority party. They are right that it is highly unusual for a majority party to strip a member of the minority from a committee seat like this, but Marjorie Taylor Greene's views are also highly, highly unusual. In addition to the ones you mentioned, she has also elevated social media posts calling for violence against Democrats. So they believe this is an extraordinary situation that has to be dealt with for the good of the House of Representatives.
But on Congresswoman Cheney, is she in a position now to beat back this backlash?
She certainly seems to think so, Shep. She, as you mentioned, refused to apologize for her vote to impeach former President Trump, even though she was wildly in the minority on this issue. Just 10 House Republicans out of about 200 voted the way she did, but she isn't backing down. And I think she also is ironically helped by the fact that if Republicans do nothing about Marjorie Taylor Greene and remove her from leadership, it sends an extraordinary signal to any kind of future Republicans who may be running for office, who may subscribe to the old school kind of Republicanism and believe that there's no real place for them in the party if someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene's views are accepted or at least not punished, and someone like Liz Cheney is removed.
Sahil Kapoor, thanks very much.
All right, my royal family. So, McCarthy had great fear. He couldn't do what he basically pass the buck. And these people, what's amazing to me is the antics that these people are displaying. This is where we really get to see Esau at its finest. From the point of rioting, from the point of looking like they can make executive decisions, at the end of the day, they all one and the same. We don't give a damn about your occupation and all that. You know, they still all messed up with that, the people that they continue to arrest at, you know, certain occupations. And see, some people don't fully understand how dangerous this woman is. She's talking about literally assassinating people like Nancy Pelosi and feel comfortable working shoulder to shoulder with her to spew any and everything. And you know that this person, it's one thing to work with someone and y'all ain't feeling each other, but it's a whole different dynamic where you get out on the world stage and just trash your coworker and from your heart and say what you really want to do to them, and hopefully everybody want to do it to them on the job. You know, and see what they say is, like in Trump's situation, oh, don't take Trump so serious. He that's just the way he is. This ain't no plaything. You know, for 4 years we dealt with an incompetent president, then messed up everything. Like Farrakhan said, if that joker becomes the president, he will take this country into abyss. You see Joe Biden gonna get writer's cramp trying to undo all the stuff that he just never even read to even sign and everything. But see, his woman, again, is feeling some kind of way. So the verdict is already in. You know, what's the purpose of even waiting till Thursday? It's already in. Liz is cool. She gonna be dealt with. And trust and believe, there are other ones out there, which we have seen, that's gonna step it up. Oh yeah, her man gonna step it up too. Because they're gonna be like, what the hell I got to lose? Wow, this is some powerful stuff. You couldn't have told me even 5 years ago that I would see something on this level. So let's get into this next audio.
Democrats move to pull Marjorie Taylor Greene from panels after GOP declines action. Liz Cheney fends off effort to oust her from leadership over Trump impeachment vote. By Christina Peterson and Siobhan Hughes. February 3rd, 2021, 9:20 p.m. Eastern Time. Washington Democrats plan a House vote Thursday to strip GOP Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of her committee assignments after the top House Republican condemned her past comments embracing conspiracy theories and political violence, but signaled he wouldn't remove her from the panels. The intensifying fight over the freshman Georgia representative converged with an unsuccessful effort by Republicans to topple House GOP Conference Chairwoman Liz Cheney of Wyoming after she voted to impeach former President Donald Trump. A motion to oust her was defeated 145-61 in Ms. Cheney's favor, GOP aides said late Wednesday. The two debates highlighted the fierce infighting roiling the party as it seeks to define itself after Mr. Trump's loss, and the eagerness of House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, R. California, to knit together warring factions of the GOP. After weeks of withholding judgment, Mr. McCarthy indicated Wednesday that he wouldn't move to strip committee assignments from Mrs. Greene, a Trump loyalist who has drawn bipartisan condemnation for several past social media posts that have emerged since she took office. Past comments from and endorsed by Marjorie Taylor Greene on school shootings, political violence, and anti-Semitic conspiracy theories do not represent the values or beliefs of the House Republican Conference, Mr. McCarthy said Wednesday. Mr. McCarthy said he met privately with Mrs. Greene on Tuesday night and stressed that she must hold herself to a higher standard as an elected official. Mr. McCarthy said that he proposed moving Mrs. Green from the Education Panel to the Small Business Committee, but that Democrats had rebuffed the suggestion. Democrats, who control the House, could remove Mrs. Green from her committees on a party line vote. During a closed-doors meeting with House Republicans on Wednesday afternoon, Mr. McCarthy said he supported keeping Mrs. Green on the House's Education and Budget committees. He also backed keeping Ms. Cheney in leadership, speaking in support of her at both the start and close of the hours-long meeting, saying she was part of a team that had delivered results in November when Republicans picked up House seats. "We didn't lose one seat this election," Mr. McCarthy said in his closing remarks, according to someone familiar with the meeting. "Let me put my team together and we will win the majority." Ms. Cheney was the only member of GOP leadership and one of 10 House Republicans overall to vote to impeach Mr. Trump last month on allegations that he incited the violent mob that stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. During Wednesday afternoon's meeting, Ms. Cheney said she wouldn't apologize for her vote but offered context for the timing of the statement she had released the night before, in which she said of Mr. Trump, "There has never been a greater betrayal by a president of the United States of his office and his oath to the Constitution." Representative Dan Bishop, RNC, introduced a resolution that had been circulating among House Republicans calling on Ms. Cheney to step down from leadership. Mr. McCarthy ascended to power on his ability to forge strong relationships, including with Mr. Trump. His actions Wednesday will almost certainly leave some faction of the House GOP unhappy and complicate his ambitions of becoming Speaker if the party reclaims the House next year. It is not at all clear that the Trump base and the Republican Country Club base can coexist, but it's the only path to a majority, said former GOP aide Stuart Verdery. There's just not enough votes amongst either crowd to win back the House. Mr. McCarthy's decision to leave Mrs. Green on committee shifts some of the political focus to Democrats, who will now try to remove her. But it also opens up Mr. McCarthy to continued criticism among some House Republicans that he hasn't done more to manage the fallout over Mrs. Green. Thursday's vote could also put some House GOP lawmakers in a difficult spot in deciding whether to vote to protect her from Democratic punishment, a stance that could repel donors and voters skeptical of both her and Mr. Trump. Mr. McCarthy, who has swung between saying Mr. Trump bears some responsibility for the deadly attack on the Capitol and saying he didn't provoke the violence, flew to Florida last week to mend fences with the former president. House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer, the MD, said Wednesday morning that the House would vote Thursday on stripping Mrs. Green of her committee posts. She came to the Congress with an extraordinarily hostile rhetoric and hostile actions that she had taken prior to coming to Congress, and her actions in the Congress have been consistent, Mr. Hoyer said of the Georgia representative. No matter what a GOP leader does, it would never be enough for the Hate America Democrats, Mrs. Green said on Twitter Wednesday. On Tuesday, she said she had raised more than $160,000 Tuesday after Senate Republicans, including GOP leader Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, criticized her comments. Stripping a lawmaker of committee assignments is seen as a public rebuke and a severe punishment by taking away an important venue to shape legislation and diminishing the lawmaker's influence for voters at home. In recent years, former GOP Iowa Representative Steve King was stripped of his assignments by fellow Republicans in 2019 for questioning in a newspaper interview what was wrong with white supremacy. He lost his primary in 2020. Mrs. Green emerged as the most contentious new House Republican before arriving in Washington. While running for the GOP nomination in a solidly Republican district in Georgia last year, her online activity began to draw attention, including posts tying her to QAnon and other conspiracy theories, as well as comments vilifying Muslims and other groups. In recent weeks, additional past social media posts have emerged, including remarks casting doubt on who was responsible for mass shootings, condoning violence against Democratic leaders, and questioning whether a plane crashed into the Pentagon on September 11, 2001. Mrs. Green has scoffed at wearing a mask in the Capitol complex to protect against the spread of COVID-19, including when lawmakers were trapped in a room together during the January 6th attack. Several House Democrats later tested positive for the coronavirus. Some Republicans question whether she should be punished for comments largely made before she became a member of Congress and are reluctant to be seen as giving into Democratic pressure. Many of the details of Mrs. Green's past embrace of conspiracy theories were known when voters elected her in November. For literally centuries, the majority in the House, whether that be Republican or Democrat, has always allowed the minority to choose from their ranks who will sit on as many committee seats as they are allotted for that Congress, Representative Brian Babin, R. Texas, said on Facebook. Democrats' move to push a Republican out of committees would shatter that precedent, he said. Foreshadowing the fights that could lie ahead if Republicans were to win back the House, Mr. Babin introduced an amendment that would instead remove Representative Ilhan Omar, D. Minnesota, from the House Foreign Affairs Committee and leave Mrs. Green undisturbed. Ms. Omar drew criticism in 2019 when she made comments suggesting that lawmakers' support for Israel was driven by money from a pro-Israel group. She later apologized. Republicans will do anything to distract from the fact that they have not only allowed but elevated members of their own caucus who encourage violence, Ms. Omar said Wednesday. Separately, Ms. Cheney fended off an effort from Mr. Trump's loyalists to oust her from leadership after her vote to impeach the former president. Some Republicans questioned whether she could still effectively serve in her leadership role in charge of GOP messaging given her stance on Mr. Trump when so many House Republicans remain loyal to him. Critics were particularly annoyed that she put out a fiery statement the night before the impeachment vote, enabling Democrats to use her words to bolster their own arguments. "We really did have a terrific vote tonight," Ms. Cheney said after the meeting ended. She said the party had focused on laying out what we're going to do going forward, as well as making clear that we're not going to be divided and that we're not going to be in a situation where people can pick off any member of leadership. The fight has been brewing for months, ever since Ms. Cheney at one point supported a primary opponent for Representative Thomas Massie, RKY, who has often angered GOP leaders. Mr. Massie forced the full House to return to Washington for a coronavirus aid vote in late March. Still, siding with a primary opponent is an unusual step for GOP leaders, who traditionally back their own incumbents and occasionally remain neutral when members have made missteps. This civil war in the Republican Party that we may be on the precipice of is not one in which the outsiders fired the first shot, said Representative Matt Gaetz, R. Florida, who flew to Wyoming to hold a rally against Ms. Cheney last week. It's not going to be a situation where people like Liz Cheney are going to be able to try to take out folks like Thomas Massie, and that those of us that are outsiders are not going to return some political fire. Ousting Ms. Cheney from leadership would have blunted the rapid ascent she had made through GOP ranks since being elected to the House in 2016. The daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney, she has long been viewed as a rival to Mr. McCarthy and potentially the first Republican woman to serve as House Speaker. Write to Christina Peterson at christina.peterson@wsj.com and Shabbat.
All right, my royal family. You know what I was thinking, my royal family? What came to me is Becky truly don't know her man. Now, he done went out, robbed, steal, and killed for her. And when he come home, he's nothing more than a male chauvinist pig. Her man never wanted her in any leadership or power position, and we can see why. See, they frustrated my royal family. I've been talking about this way before Trump got elected. I kept saying, and y'all watched that video, I said, how is she gonna act if she don't get that throne? Okay, Barack got it. Hillary was knocked down. Then 8 whole years passed. And then she gonna try again. She was woe out. Think about, it was a statement that I made during the Amber Geiger trial. 10 to 20 years ago, you wouldn't have seen her on the witness stand. We probably wouldn't even know what she looked like or her name. You know, I know things are slow when it comes to, it seems slow when it comes to their karma. But now we're seeing it happen in rapid succession. Becky, you done forced your man's hand. You think you know him. And at first, he gonna coddle. But over time, give it some time, and I mean very short time, He just gonna deal with you swiftly, because now you on the world stage showing your ass, saying the most ridiculous shit. See, this crop of new politicians come in, some of them, they don't know the Constitution. They don't even understand the position that they are in, that they are supposed to uphold the Constitution and be the voice of the very people that voted your funky, greasy, dusty ass in office. Hypothetically speaking. If you go further in history, back in the day, your politicians was the poor people in the community. They truly did know the needs of your community. We didn't have all these states, just a handful at the time. And so they could better represent. But that thing turned around. Now these politicians are millionaires. They don't live an everyday lifestyle like you and I live. You know? But the dynamics is quite powerful and interesting. I've been waiting for this. I'm not gonna front. I've been sitting in the cut waiting. And I said, I know the royal family want me to put up a video. Y'all know I do videos based on emotions, and I feel like I deliver the best. I can give you the best of the best, and I always try to find those sweet, juicy nuggets. Oh, it's going to be more to come, my royal family, because she going to show her ass out in many ways. They all interconnected. So what I need you to do is to render your voice with your beautiful divine words. And as always, my royal family, I thank you for your love. I thank you for your support. And with that said, Ashe.